Hello everyone, this is Wrestling Watcher YouTube channel. It's about watching professional wrestling. So I see Karrion Kross has been making the rounds lately. I believe he was on the Ariel Helwani show, and he talked about how Triple H didn't notify him upon leaving the company. And he was unhappy with this, and it got me thinking, was he underutilized or overrated? And if you remember, he came into the company 2020, I believe it was, NXT. He had a really strong run, solid year change run there, right? And then he gets on Raw in 2021, the later parts of 2021. This would have been during the certain latter years of Vince McMahon. And if you remember, the talk of the time was that he really looked down upon NXT talent. He didn't look at them, with the respect that perhaps other wrestling fans thought they should have, right? Because you had Adam Cole at the time, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, a whole lot of guys back then, actually. And it seemed like Vince would bury them when they got to main TV, got to their main roster, Raw and SmackDown. And Karrion Kross was no different. He lost his debut match on Raw to Jeff Hardy. And if you remember, they changed his entire gimmick from what he was in NXT. They put a goofy helmet on him, new theme, kind of a red light, a really goofy helmet that a lot of people kind of scoffed at. And that gimmick failed, and then eventually in 2022, he had a feud with Drew McIntyre that was meant to be this top-of-the-card main event feud that seemingly didn't really go anywhere. Didn't launch him the way I think they thought it would. I thought they had a cool theme song. And then eventually, there were start and stop pushes and all that sort of stuff. He did have the feud last year with Sami Zayn, I believe it was, where he was feuding with him. I believe it was before that. He was in a faction called the Final Testament with the Authors of Pain, a really solid big tag team. He had his wife Scarlett with him and the former Road Warriors manager, Paul Ellering. And I thought it was a good presentation, and they feuded with the Wyatt Six for a while, and it was an intense feud. Then eventually I believe it would go to SmackDown with that group, or some rendition of that group. I think maybe Paul Ellering was released. I'm not sure if Scarlett was. If you remember WrestleMania 40, Karrion Kross and Authors of Pain had the feud with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. And it was presented as this low mid-card type of feud that wasn't that important. I remember people thinking it was kind of goofy because you had so much talent there, maybe that should have been presented better. The Street Profits have kind of had the same kind of thing where it's start and stop pushes, it's moments of, boy, look what we got here, followed by, oh, look, they're not even hardly used. And then you have Bobby Lashley there that, look, he was previously WWE champion, right? They previously booked him as a monster, and now he's being presented as this low mid-card type guy. And it's just this six-man tag. And after that, Karrion kind of bounced around a little bit. As I said, he had that feud with Sami Zayn, but then he would soon be gone from the company, him and Scarlett. And it makes you wonder, underutilized or overrated? Did the machine not fully get behind him the way they should have? Or was he never that great to begin with? I've thought he was really good. I thought he was good to really good there for a long time. But it's kind of one of those things where, I'll use this as an example. You look at the NFL. 32 teams, 32 starting quarterbacks. By definition, those 32 starting quarterbacks should be the greatest 32 quarterbacks on the earth, right? Now, the bottom 5, quarterback 32 through 27, are they terrible? Well, if they're terrible, they probably shouldn't be in the NFL. They probably wouldn't be. They're just not as good as, say, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, the tippy-top guys who are, that number 1, 2, and 3 spot. So it makes you wonder, is Karrion Kross just Is he good enough to be on the roster? Is he good enough to be that, like I'll use that metaphor, one of the 32 top quarterbacks, but he's just not, a top 5, top 10 guy? Or was he a top 5, top 10 guy that just never got pushed or utilized in that manner? That's the question I ask you guys. That's all for this one. Thank you.